Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. Today, we are going to be tackling something that affects all of us.
Yeah,
The constantly changing world of U.S. housing.
right.
You've sent over some really interesting sources lately,
Yes.
and it seems like we're going to be zeroing in on three major areas today.
Okay.
One is HOAs,
Right.
two is home insurance,
Uh-huh.
and three is something that sounds like straight out of a movie,
Okay.
rent manipulation software.
Oh, wow.
What's wild to me is how
Yeah.
these all kind of connect in the end
Yeah.
and affect who can live,
Yeah.
where, and at what cost.
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay,
It's a super complex web.
so let's start unwinding this web with
Okay.
something that I think most people have at least heard of,
Sure.
HOAs.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I have to admit,
Mm-hmm.
when I hear HOA,
Yeah.
I just picture that classic image of a grumpy neighbor
Right.
who's like yelling at you for where you put your lawn gnome.
Uh-huh.
But is that the reality, or is there's more to it?
Well, I mean, there is some truth to the stereotype,
Okay.
but it really goes deeper than that.
Okay.
HOAs are essentially
Mm-hmm.
private governing bodies within a community.
Okay.
So you can almost think of them like mini governments,
Uh-huh.
but just focused on your specific housing development.
Also, it's very localized.
Exactly. And their responsibilities include
Mm-hmm.
maintenance of common areas like,
Okay.
the parks or the pools,
Mm-hmm.
and then enforcing community rules.
Oh, yeah, the rules.
And sometimes, that does come down to the lawn gnome regulation.
So they actually can control that stuff.
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting.
Right.
Membership is mandatory if you buy a home in one of these communities.
Really?
So that comes with...
So it's not optional.
No, it's not.
You have to be a part of the HOA.
Yep. And that comes with those monthly fees that everybody talks about.
What are those fees usually like?
Well, they typically fall somewhere between $200 and $300 per
Right.
month.
So if I understand correctly,
Yeah.
you're locked into the membership even if you don't like the rules,
That's exactly it.
and you have to pay those fees.
That's the trade-off.
Wow.
You're buying into a community with these pre-existing rules
Uh,
and a governing structure already in place.
so it's not just about
Yeah.
looks or...
No, it's not just about keeping things looking nice.
Right.
These HOAs, they have real power.
Mm-hmm.
They can fine homeowners for violations.
Oh, yeah.
And if those fines go unpaid,
Yeah.
things can get very, very bad very quickly.
What do you mean by very bad?
We're talking leavings on your property,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically a legal claim against your home
Okay.
to ensure that debt is paid.
So they can take your house.
That's a step towards that.
Oh, wow.
And even wage garnishment.
What's that?
That's where they can actually take a portion of your paycheck to cover those unpaid fines.
So the stakes are a lot higher than I originally thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
This isn't just about, keeping the neighborhood
Right.
looking nice and
It
perfect.
can have real financial consequences.
Yeah, this is real money.
Exactly.
That's scary.
HOAs often try to justify this power by
Yeah.
saying that their rules protect property values.
So, like, all these rules actually help your home value?
Supposedly,
Right.
yes. But the data on that is surprisingly mixed.
Oh, really?
Some studies show that HOAs do increase property value,
Okay.
particularly in suburban areas where everything's kind of uniform.
Oh, they want the cookie cutter.
Exactly. And uniformity is prized.
Okay.
However, other research indicates that in
Mm.
densely populated areas like cities,
Yeah.
the impact of HOAs on property value
Okay.
is minimal, or in some cases even negative.
They're not guaranteed to win
No, not at all.
if you're part of an HOA.
There's definitely potential for both benefit and risk.
And especially when you add in all these disputes and
Yeah.
legal battles that can happen.
Exactly.
You actually sent over a story about a family, the Inistros,
Yeah.
who really got
Yeah.
caught up in this
Yeah.
whole HOA battle.
They did. Their story is a perfect example of how things can go wrong.
They ended up paying $12,000 in
Wow.
fines and legal fees
That's a lot of money.
just fighting their HOA.
It is.
And what's crazy is they say their property value went up
Uh-huh.
because of the market, not
Yeah.
because of the HOA.
Right, and that's where the lack of regulation and oversight for
Yeah.
HOAs
Yeah.
becomes a real problem.
Because there's no one watching them.
Right?
They could do whatever they want.
They have all this power
Yeah.
that can directly impact
Yeah.
people's finances and lives.
And like you were saying, there's nothing to stop them
There's not a lot stopping them
So-
from
so
just fining people.
from imposing excessive fines
Yeah.
or, dragging homeowners into these legal battles.
Mhm.
It's not very transparent at all.
Exactly.
It definitely makes you rethink
Mhm.
joining an HOA.
It does.
It's not all community pools,
Right.
nice sidewalk.
Exactly. It's not just about the perks.
There's this whole other side that
Mm.
could really cost you
That's right.
financially.
It's a whole other layer of complexity
Yeah.
and potential financial pitfalls that you have to consider.
Exactly. And it's not just HOA fees that homeowners have to worry about these days.
Right.
Climate change is making things even more complicated and a lot more expensive.
Yeah, it really is a perfect storm brewing right now.
Oh, no. What do you mean?
Well, as climate risks like wildfires and floods
Mhm.
become more and more frequent.
Yeah, and intense.
Exactly.
It seems like every year it's getting worse.
Insurance companies are really facing this double whammy.
Oh, what's that?
Well, on the one hand, they're seeing these massive payouts for all these claims.
Right. People are filing more and more claims.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, rebuilding costs are just skyrocketing.
Because of inflation.
Yes, because of inflation, supply chain issues.
Oh, yeah. All of that.
It's a mess.
So the insurance companies are getting hit from both sides.
Basically, and it's making them rethink their whole business model.
Oh, I bet. I mean, I can't blame them.
And what we're seeing now is that major insurers are starting to pull back from these high-risk areas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like State Farm and Allstate.
Wow, big names.
Yeah, they've actually stopped issuing new policies in some parts of California,
Mm-hmm.
Florida, and other states that are really vulnerable to wildfires or floods.
Oh, wow.
It's like they're saying we can't even adjust the premiums high enough to cover the risk.
I can see why. I mean, that would be tough.
And a lot of them are saying that state regulations are also a problem.
So it's not just the risk, it's also the regulations. I mean, I can only imagine what that's like for people living in those areas.
It's really stressful for homeowners.
To suddenly be told, like, you can't get coverage or your rates are going to go up thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
Imagine going from like $2,000 a year to $12,000.
I know that's a huge burden.
Way more than most people can afford.
And for some people, it's even worse than a price hike.
What do you mean worse?
They're getting non-renewal notices.
Oh, no.
Yeah, their insurance company is basically dropping them.
So they have no coverage at all.
None, and that's a big problem.
I bet. So what happens then?
Well, it can really tank your property value.
Makes sense. Nobody wants to buy a house that they can't insure.
Right. Some estimates say it could drop by as much as 12%.
Ouch.
And without insurance, most mortgage lenders won't approve loans.
So you can't sell your house.
Exactly. You're kind of stuck.
That's a scary situation.
It is.
So what are people doing? What are their options?
It's tough, honestly.
Yeah.
Some states offer last resort insurance options,
Well, like what?
like the FAIR Plan in California.
Okay.
But these are usually more expensive, and the coverage isn't as good.
Right.
Some people choose to self-insure.
What's that?
It basically means they're taking on all the risk themselves.
Oh, so if something happens, they have to pay for it.
Yeah, it's a huge gamble.
Especially in these high-risk areas.
Exactly, and then there's always the option to move.
But that's not easy.
No,
Yeah.
especially if your property value has already gone down.
You're right. It's a real catch-22.
It is.
So are there any, like, government programs or anything to help people?
There are some things being discussed.
Okay.
Some states are exploring these resilience grants.
What are those?
It's money to help homeowners make their properties more resilient to climate change.
Oh, so they can withstand the floods or fires?
Exactly, and that could make their homes more insurable.
That makes sense.
And at the federal level, there are some discussions about reforming disaster relief programs
Oh, yeah.
to better support communities that are facing these increasing challenges.
That sounds promising.
It does, but it's all happening so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still a lot of uncertainty about what the long-term solutions will be.
Yeah. Well, it seems like climate change is really shaking things up.
It's not just an environmental issue anymore.
Right. It's affecting people's wallets.
Exactly. It's an economic issue and a social issue.
Definitely. And we've been talking about homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
But what about renters?
That's a great point.
They're often left out of these conversations.
They are, and they're dealing with their own set of challenges.
I bet. Okay. So let's talk about renters now.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they're dealing with a whole other set of problems.
Definitely. And one that's been getting a lot of attention lately is this idea of rent manipulation software.
Rent manipulation software.
Yeah, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right?
It does. Kind of like an algorithm deciding how much you have to pay.
Exactly. And it's making a lot of people nervous.
You sent me some research on this.
I did.
And it is a little unsettling to think that,
Yeah.
a computer program could be driving up rents.
It's definitely raising a lot of questions.
Well, how does this even work?
Well, at the heart of this whole debate is a company called RealPage.
RealPage.
They offer this AI-powered software.
Oh, so it uses artificial intelligence.
Yep. And the most well-known one is called YieldStar.
YieldStar, what does that do?
It's used by big landlords to set rental prices.
So instead of, a person deciding how much to charge,
Right.
it's a computer program.
Exactly. It crunches all this data and spits out these rent recommendations.
That's a little scary.
It is, and the concern is that this software could be used to get rid of competition.
Oh, so it's not just about setting prices. It's about
Right.
making sure that all the landlords are kind of on the same page.
That's the worry, and that could artificially inflate rents.
So basically, tenants have no choice but to pay whatever.
Right, because everyone's charging the same high price.
It takes away their power.
Yeah, it's like the human element is gone.
No more like negotiating with your landlord.
Exactly.
And this isn't just a theory, right?
Yeah, it's not just speculation.
There's an actual lawsuit about this.
There is. The Attorney General in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
has filed a lawsuit against a group of landlords who use this RealPage software.
what are they accusing them of?
The lawsuit says they basically created a housing cartel.
A housing cartel.
Yeah, by using YieldStar to coordinate rent increases across all their properties.
Oh, so they're all working together.
That's the allegation, and that raises concerns about anti-competitive practices.
And it sounds like they have some pretty strong evidence.
Yeah, one of the key pieces of evidence is data showing that landlords are following RealPage's recommendations over 90% of the time.
90%, that's a lot.
It suggests that the software is having a big influence on their pricing.
So RealPage is saying it's just suggestions.
Right.
But it seems like landlords are taking those suggestions very seriously.
They are, and tenants are arguing that it's being used to manipulate the market.
And make housing less affordable.
Exactly. It's like this battle between algorithms and affordability.
I mean, it makes sense for the landlords.
It does. They want to maximize their profits.
But it's hurting the renters.
Right. And this connects back to the bigger issue of housing affordability.
That we've been talking about.
Rents have been increasing for years.
Yeah, much faster than wages.
And that's forcing people out of their homes.
They're having to make these impossible choices.
Right, between paying rent or buying groceries or paying for health care.
It's not a good situation.
No, it's not. And if this software is being used to further inflate rents...
Just gonna make things worse.
Exactly. It's like adding fuel to the fire.
So we've talked about HOAs,
Yeah.
the insurance crisis,
Right.
and now this rent manipulation software.
It's a lot to take in, right?
Yeah, it seems like the housing market is in a really tough spot right now.
It is. There are all these challenges.
That's the main takeaway for our listeners.
I think the big picture is that housing is becoming less and less affordable.
And less accessible.
Exactly.
It's not just about one thing.
No, it's this combination of factors.
HOAs, climate change technology.
And it's impacting both homeowners and renters.
It seems like we're at a turning point.
I think we are.
The decisions we make now about these issues are going to have a huge impact on the future of housing.
Absolutely.
So it's up to us to figure out
Yeah.
how to create a system that's fair and sustainable.
Right. A system that works for everyone, not just a select few.
Exactly. So keep asking those questions. Keep pushing for change.
That's the most important thing.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive,
It was a pleasure.
and we'll see you next time.